Welcome to the woods. It's nearly summertime, so it's pouring down with rain. The dogs are driving me mad. And I want to have a chat about Archeofuturism, a book by Faye, who was a member of the French New Right during the 70s, through the 80s and into the 90s. And the book was written at the tail end of the 90s, 1998 I think. And in it, he comes to some conclusions that I think are correct, and he comes to some conclusions I think are half correct. And I'm going to break it down, but I'm not going to go through the whole book. A lot of the early part of the book deals with his disenfranchisement with the French New Right. And I really want to get into what Archeofuturism was and why he saw it being a viable ideology or way forward. So the first thing to point out is that Faye actually predicts in the late 90s that there will be a civilizational collapse brought about by a financial collapse, environmental catastrophes, and ethnic strife. And that the governments will be unable to stop the collapse because of the neoliberal system that they're operating within. Now, in the late 90s, I think that collapse was looking inevitable, whereas today I'm not too sure it's going to happen quite the way he saw it. But I'll get onto that in a minute and the reasons behind it. So after this collapse, Faye sees vast populations globally reverting to an archaic, more traditional way of living. Can you hear them dogs snoring? Which is possible. He also foresees a small percentage, 10 to 20%, moving forward with technology and scientific advancements. So you end up with a dual split society. And I've got a couple of quotes I'll just read out. So Faye comes to the conclusion that we could not cope if all of Asia and all of Africa were to obtain the same level of techno-industrial development. And I think he's right. That if all of Asia and all of Africa was to attain the same level of consumerism and industrialization as the West, it's unviable. And it's unviable because there aren't the resources. And I think he recognised that fact. So he goes on to say, why should everyone want to reach Mars? Or travel on a 500-kilometre-an-hour bullet train? Fly in a supersonic jet? Live to the age of 100 through transplants and antibiotics? Chat to other people online? Or watch TV? This only belongs to certain people and groups and cannot be extended to humanity as a whole. Well, that statement, that conclusion, goes against everything that the society and the system we live under says. Today we're taught that anybody can do anything, that everybody can have everything. And I think what Faye is saying is that that's just not true. That it's unreasonable to suggest or to pretend that everyone can have everything. And I think he's right. What he doesn't delve into in the book is how those two separate groups, how the 20% that live a technological and scientific lifestyle in the cities and who benefit from that system, and how the 80% live in a more traditional agricultural lifestyle in the country, how that hierarchical system is come to. Or if there's a mechanism where you can move from one to the other. That's not really touched on. But I think the overarching view for me was maybe a little too close to a system we've got coming down the road already. So I'm going to compare Faye's Archeofuturism to stakeholder capitalism and the Great Reset put forward by the World Economic Forum, who also recognise that there's either too many people or not enough resources, and that there's going to be a split society. Now, in Faye's system, the majority of people have reverted back to and are happier living a traditional lifestyle. And in the Great Reset, they're saying that the population's not going to be happy with that, so they're going to need to be controlled. And their way of control is by actually using technology to control populations in what they've called smart cities, but in reality are nothing more than heavily surveilled prison compounds. And the reason they've done that is because they've come to the conclusion that the collapse that Faye saw happening through financial collapse, environmental catastrophes, and ethnic strife is a very real possibility. So how do they control the population? Well, their conclusion was different to Faye's. They don't believe that people would be happy or happier living a traditional lifestyle. So the elite who are running things now have decided that they'll be the ones to benefit from technology, whilst the masses will merely be controlled by technology. Both systems split. Both systems with an elite, a hierarchy of those that use technology for their benefit, and what I can only class as an underclass or a lower society. And although Faye tries to explain in the book that that isn't the case, and that both societies should be seen on the same level, I don't think that's the reality. And I can't see why he wouldn't have gone one stage further. And maybe it was to do with the time the book was written. But I can't see why, if he could see that the advancements in technology and science and automation were possible, why he couldn't go and combine them with the traditional land-based society he saw giving so many people happiness and contentment. Because I don't think you need to divide the two. I don't think you need two societies, one with and one without. I think you can have a society with a balance of both. That's definitely not what the WEF is proposing. And I think the reason they're moving forward is that the catastrophe Faye saw coming true, the collapse, is something they're avoiding by a controlled changeover. So not a catastrophic collapse of the financial system and environmental catastrophes and scarcity of resources, but they'll be putting in another system to run alongside the current one until it replaces it. So I think I'm going to do a follow-up video, because at the end of Faye's book he does a short story, a day in the life, and that's quite interesting. A day of the life of someone living the technocratical, technologically advanced lifestyle, who talks about how happy the vast populations are living without technology. And I'd like to contrast that to a way I can see moving forward that combines both. And that also is a split system. That is also a hierarchy or a hierarchical system where some people do have more than others. But I'll leave that for the next video. Anyway, Archeofuturism, not the way I'm living, but interesting nevertheless. Anyway, you lot, I hope you enjoyed that. Drop any comments down below and I'll do my best to get back to you. Speak soon.